Dear listeners, the regional news unit Akashvani Kohima brings you a special radio series titled Understanding GST, where we aim to break down the complexity of India's goods and services tax in a simple and relatable way. Lately, there has been a lot of buzz around the Generation Next GST reforms, but before we explore what the futures hold, it is important to first understand the basic. In this first episode, our topic of discussion is General Introduction to GST. To help us understand this better, I have with me Mr. Merenkaba, Commercial State Tax Officer from the Taxes Department, Government of Nagaland, who will guide us through the fundamentals of GST, what it is, why it was introduced, and how it has reshaped India's tax landscape. Mr. Merenkaba, welcome to our program. We are delighted to have you with us today to help our listeners gain a clear understanding of GST, its origin and its significance in the Indian taxation system.
Thank you, ma'am. In fact, it is a great opportunity, and I hope that the listener will also have a good understanding about GST once we completed this series. And once again, I'm very thankful for bringing this program for the benefit of the listeners.
So to start off, let's begin with the basic. For many, the term GST comes up quite often, but they may not fully understand what it actually means. So could you briefly explain what GST is and why it was introduced?
Yes, sure. The introduction of GST by the 101st Amendment of the Constitution of India, which came into effect from 1st July 2017, and I should say that a very significant step in the field of indirect tax reforms in India. In fact, it is the biggest tax reforms after independence of India.
Okay.
And one of the most important things here is by amalgamating a large number of central and state taxes into a single tax. As far as the taxes is concerned, it makes a national one common market. And from the consumer point of view, the biggest advantage would be in the terms of reduction in the overall tax burden of goods, which is currently estimated to be around 25 and 30%. The introduction of the GST would also make Indian products competitive in the domestic and international markets. Studies show that this would have a positive impact on the economic growth of the country. Last but not the least, because it is all online, it is transparent in self-policing character, it will be very much easier to administer for the taxes officials, both the state and the center.
Thank you so much for explaining to us what is GST all about. Now coming to the next question. What were the main challenges or issues with the old tax system that GST aimed to fix?
That is a very good question. Before the GST, there are a number of different taxes in the country. One of the most important one is, of course, what is called the VAT, value-added tax regime of 2005. And let us mainly discuss about this one. Here, one of the most fundamental problem is the cascading of tax. That means tax upon tax. Because the center has their own kind of taxes, like the central excise taxes, additional excise taxes, and so many other things. Apart from that, once it comes to the state, we had different states with different tax rate, and the tax that are already imposed by the center became the base price when the different state imposes their value-added taxes. Another thing is what we heard about the input tax credit. It was restricted in the earlier regime to the same state. That means you can avail, any businessman can avail IDC only when they are dealing within the state. You are buying from the wholesaler here in Nagaland, for example, and selling within the same state. It is restricted when you are bringing the goods from outside. So there was no IDC, which restrict the flow of not only the items, but in business concept, it is called the cash flow concept. So all this problem was there. Another thing is the nature of the tax. Mainly it is about when it comes to the state, it applied to goods. The services was totally under the center, and administrative problem was also there. And for any business people, especially who are dealing with the different combination of both the goods and services, they will comply with the rules of the state as well as center. It would be difficult for the individual taxpayers and the business people. Another thing is the compliance in filing. It is state specified. Suppose you had a business in Nagaland, you had the same business in Assam. So again, the rules are different. Some are online, some are offline. So all this problem was there.
Okay.
So the introduction of GST is mainly to erase this kind of problems in the old tax regime.
Now we often hear CGST, SGST and IGST. Could you explain what these mean in simpler terms for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. The GST structure in India is divided, you rightly said so, the three main components. That is a central goods and service tax, which we used to call the commonly CGST, state goods and service tax, and the other one is the integrated goods and service tax, that's IGST. And this division actually meant for helps in streamline the tax collections and ensures proper revenue distribution between the central and the state governments. It is governed by the CGST Act 2017 for center, SGST Act 2017 and the state, in IGST Act 2017, which is mainly controlled by the center. And it is actually the same tax, but for the smooth flow of the distributions as per the predetermined formula only. So suppose CGST is collected by the central governments on intra-state trade of goods and services, and it is the share of the central revenue within the state. So for example, your goods is taxable at 18%, and assuming that is 118. So 50%, that is 9 rupee go to the center under CGST and 9 rupee come to the state. So this CGST and SGST, the CGST is, I'm repeating again for the benefit of the listeners, that CGST is collected by the central governments on intra-state trade of goods and services. And SGST is collected by the state in intra-state transactions and remains within the state. In IGST, as far as IGST is concerned, which is integrated goods and service tax, as we explained earlier, applies in inter-state transaction and is shared between the center and state based on the predetermined formula. Of course, we had another one, that is the UGST, the Union Territory Goods and Service Tax Act, which is similar with the SGST for the full-fledged state concern.
Thank you so much for explaining so well about the CGST, SGST and IGST. I'm sure our listeners will be able to get some brief idea about what it is all about. Now for startups and or entrepreneurs who are new to business and want to apply for GST, what should they do and how should they go about, especially for the registration process?
And it's a very simple process, since it is all online in real time. But one thing that we make to sure is any startup or entrepreneurs or the small dealers, before you register, what you should keep in mind is you should do proper KYC, especially the business proof. Suppose you're applying for retailers, then you should have the trade licenses from the municipal concerns or town committee or whatever. And the main issue is as per the system, the address of the business is a very important one, which is mainly light bills or rent receipts or something like that. Otherwise, the rent agreements, which is normally people used to do through affidavit, notarized one. And other one is, now it's very important to have the Aadhaar number, and it should be a very relevant one in the sense that the mobile number should be there, so that because Aadhaar authentication is almost mandatory now. And not only for registration, why it is very important, one more thing I want to say is that Aadhaar authentication is a must for refund also. Suppose somebody apply for refund, pay an extra tax, you had the facility to get refunded, but in anything to get refunded, you should the KYC, that is Aadhaar authentication, should be mandatory. It is mandatory in fact. And another thing is that time is also very short, that if nothing is wrong, of course we'll go further, but one more thing that I want to add here is the new system is the department has proposed that if nothing is wrong for budding entrepreneurs who doesn't have any other adverse remarks or recourse within 3 days, your registration will be approved. That is a proposal only, of course.
So to my next question, what are the key benefits of GST for regular consumers and small business owners? Are there any special schemes or provisions under GST that are designed to support small businesses?
Yeah, as far as the regular consumer is concerned, like you and me, of course, since the end of when we had already discussed about the cascading tax, which was the main problem in the early tax regimes, and when it was introduced, the estimate was any kind of goods, because of the tax upon tax, the tax portion comes around 25 to 30%. That was the as per the study before introduction of GST. So once it comes to the GST, since it removes this tax upon tax, cascade tax, then definitely the goods will be cheaper, which I think benefit especially the goods with mass consumptions, the merit goods, the essential goods, which he used to call it usually. These are very become cheaper. And as far as the business people are concerned, of course, there is a provision for small taxpayers. Like under the provision of the updated GST law, businesses are required to register for GST based on their annual turnover. Now, when I say the annual turnover for the normal state, because we have two categories of states in India, as far as GST is concerned, like Nagaland in Meghalaya, small state and hilly states, with what is called special category states. And for normal state, the threshold limit for mandatory registration is 40 lakhs as far as the goods are concerned, and 20 lakhs as far as the services is concerned. And for the special category state is 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs respectively for the goods and services. However, for the small dealers, small taxpayers whose turnover is up to 1.5 crore, they are at the liberty to opt for what is called the composition scheme. In composition scheme is very simple one, filing is very simple, and tax is predetermined, that is, as part of goods is concerned, it will be 1% of your gross turnover, that's all. It is very simple, without any accountancy knowledge, anybody can get on it. So if your business is small, that is naturally below 1.5 crore for the general states and 75 lakhs in below for the special category state like Nagaland, you can always open the composition scheme, which is very simple.
Since its implementation of GST, how it has changed things for local shopkeepers and business owners?
Yes, as I say, one more thing that I want to add here before we go into detail is that every one of us pay taxes. But the only thing is that in the previous regimes, we don't know that we are paying tax. We are not aware that we are paying tax. That's all. So with the government of GST, because of the transparencies and all this online system is concerned, now people are aware that they are paying taxes. Both the local shopkeepers, business owners, as well as even the consumers, that we are now aware that we are paying taxes. Now, the other thing is that, because of the GST now, it will be very easy, especially for the budding entrepreneurs and the local people, that they can easily expand the business. Sitting at your home, you can register, because you can register online only. And KYC and all these things, that when you register in a particular state, if you want to apply for another registration in another state, then the verification is all very simple, much more simpler, because you're already registering one. KYC is already verification has been done in the home state, so it will be very much easier to expand your business also. And sitting in your home, you can expand your business. So I think that it will be very good for, since it is online and everything is transparent, it will be very easy. And moreover, the compliance is also very easy, because the tax rate is now in the early tax regime. There was a different tax rate and a different style of functioning in different states, because in Assam the value-added tax rate is some goods are higher even from the state of Nagaland, and likewise in vice versa. So there was problems in compliance in different states with different rules. But because of this GST, even our local shopkeepers and entrepreneurs, they can easily able to expand their business outside also. So I think it's a great opportunity for the small taxpayers and the local shopkeepers. One more thing that I want to repeat again is that the good thing for all of us is that they are now aware that they have responsibility towards the society in contributing to tax. Because once you're a registered dealer, you be an agent of the tax collection for the government. The other thing is that you can easily expand your business, because now the role is same everywhere.
Now, so I'm curious to know how GST work in practical terms. For example, like when I'm about to buy something from a local shop or online, has GST make things cheaper or more expensive for the general public?
Yeah. Definitely it's cheaper, as we discussed earlier, because there is no more additional taxes, tax upon tax. Or you can make other shadow taxes. Suppose earlier what happened is that in a factory, the central government imposed central excise duties. In some goods, there's additional excise duties also. And when it entered particular state, there was an entry tax. There was a check kit, not the police check kit that they were talking about, but there was a tax collection check kit also. The other thing is, so once it even the local, there was an octroi tax as far as the municipal area is concerned. All this was there. But now because of the GST, everything is done away with. Now one nation, one tax. There is only one tax rate, and there is a smooth flow of IDC from one place to another. The shopkeeper is also no reason to impose the shadow taxes on the customers. So definitely, since whatever tax they are given when they bring the goods, it comes do their GST account in the form of credit. So when they set up the tax in the end users, they use that tax credit to set up the taxes. So only the additional whatever profit margin that they cut from the particular goods, only that tax come in the form of cash. So there is no reason, as I say, again, for the shopkeepers and business people to impose shadow taxes on the consumers like before. Of course, for them it's also not shadow taxes. For them, they are forced to do that because they are paying tax upon tax. Everything that they bring is become the base price. The tax already collected by the center and the indirect tax has become the base price. And above that, I remember one thing here before when we were very little kids. Before even this value-added tax regime of 2005, in every medicine there was what is called the local tax extra was there in 80s and 90s.
Yes.
So that kind of tax was there. So there is no more local taxes. That's how it definitely benefit. Of course, an actual ground how we operate, that is a discussion already, but definitely it is beneficial to the consumers.
Okay. Is there anything our listeners or the public or consumers should check on their bills to ensure that GST is being applied correctly?
Yes. One thing from a personal side also, I want to make clear to all the listeners that one should make sure to obtain the proper tax invoices whenever we buy goods from GST registered dealer.
Okay.
When I say the GST registered dealers, some are not GST registered dealers because the mandatory threshold limit as discussed earlier is 20 lakhs in case of goods and 10 lakhs in case of services as far as special category dealer in Nagaland is concerned. So there might be small dealers who doesn't register, that is out of our this things, but the question is whenever you are purchasing something from the registered dealers, one should always obtain proper tax invoices. And another thing that I want to add here is that that's a good news for all the listeners. From time to time, the State Taxes Department in Nagaland will also organize what is called the My Gift scheme. That is a formal lottery where the consumers, the end users, the B2C, when you're holding the end user, that is called the B2C, business to consumers. So that the original invoices you obtain when you're buying goods, you upload in the systems. And there was a lucky draw from that. Prize money will be, sometimes it is 25,000 to 5,000. But this one is, we implemented this one in order to encourage the consumers to obtain the tax invoices whenever you are buying from the registered dealers. It is not only in state in Nagaland. In the CBIC, in the central level, the Central Board of Indirect Income Custom, they also organize from time to time Mera Bill Mera Adhikar schemes, My Bill My Rights, and where the prize money is between 10,000 to 1 crore, so it is handsome. So this initiative actually focuses on promoting the habit of asking for invoices, especially for GST chargeable purchases. Both schemes are designed for, as I say earlier, B2C, that is people like you and me, the end use consumers transaction. And one more thing that I want to add here is that there is misconceptions even for the business people also. So dear listeners, that what the business people should also aware in all of us is that suppose if you ask GST invoice, I heard so, how wide is true I don't know, but the shopkeeper they always tell that if you want the Baka GST invoices, you should pay more. That's what I heard in the market. I don't know how far it is true, but actually it's never like that. Because whether you are taking the invoices or not, he is going to pay GST. Whatever he brings, he has to solve it with the existing tax rate. So that is also one of the misconceptions that it is going on in the market. So but the business people and also the consumer, we should also know about it. And always, it is our right that actually to have the GST invoices whenever you are buying goods from the registered dealers. So, of course, if people go for time to time, especially young people, youngsters, they should always log in onto our website, nagalandtax.gov.in and Central CPIC, and know about this kind of My Keep schemes, Mera Bill, Mera Adhikar.
We all know that GST returns are filed online. So why is it necessary to file GST returns? And could you also give us a brief insight into the steps involved in filing the GST? Also, how user-friendly is the system for the average taxpayers?
Yeah, sure. For different kinds of registered dealers, there are different kinds of returns that you are supposed to file it. But we'll go to a very common one just for the knowledge of our listeners. That, for example, for regular filers, that means for regular tailors, there are two things. That is the GSTR 1 and GSTR 3P. The GSTR 1, for any regular tailors, you are supposed to file it by 11 of the succeeding month. Suppose now we're talking in the month of September. Well, if you're a regular taxpayer, once September is completed, you have to file the GSTR 1 by 11 of the October. Okay. Likewise, 3P, the GSTR 3B, you should file it by 20th of October. That means for regular tailors, it's 1, 11, and 20 respectively for GSTR 1 and 3P. Likewise, we had also one, what is called the QRMB, that's quarterly return system. That's a regular dealers, but who opt to file their return quarterly. You have the liberty to do so if your turnover is less than 5 crore. Any business or the shop whose turnover is less than 5 crore, they can also opt for what is called a QRMB, where you are supposed to file the return once in a quarter only. So for the QRMB opted dealers, you are supposed to file your GSTR 1 by 13 of the 16th month and 22nd or 24th depending on the category states for the GSTR 3P. When I say the category states, there are some states which are under X, like most of the mainland states and most of the north states, we are under category Y, and our last state is 24th as far as QRMB is concerned for GSTR 3P. Apart from that, we had what is called, as we discussed earlier, people who opt for composition schemes. They are also quarterly ones, and their return is called CMB08, and they are supposed to file it by the 18th of the succeeding quarter. Suppose now once the September quarter is finished, you have to file it by the 18th of October for the September quarter. Likewise, for December quarter, you have to file it by 18th of January, and so on and so forth. And apart from that, we had what is called the GSTR 9 and 9C. GSTR 9 is an annual return. 9C is reconciliation statement, that is also annual return, but this one is mandatory. For GSTR 9 is mandatory only for the dealers whose turnover is 2 crore and above, I should say. So in 9C is for the 5 crore and above only. So small dealer is not affect much. Apart from that, we had what is called a GSTR 7, that is for the departments, like the government departments, who are registered as a tax deductor, and they are supposed to file the return by the 10th of every month. Some other returns, like for the GSTR 6, which is for input service distributors, in GSTR 8 for tax collection is source. These are mostly IST is for those dealers, or suppose we are having a registrations, corporate houses. The State Bank of India, suppose they are the corporate houses in Mumbai, so they are the IST, and in the branches if they are distributing the inputs. And another thing is for the GSTR 8, that is tax collection store, which is online merchant companies, like even in Nagaland, where the inland law in all these things, they are coming under all these things. So different date is given as effects for different kind of dealers. Of course, they are more or less similar. As far as the system is concerned, I should say that it's very user-friendly because it's a real-time online process, and if you log in, everything is there in the system. Initially, it was a bit difficult because we had to boot it manually and everywhere, but now, because of the improvement from time to time, almost 90% is now auto-generated. Suppose you buy something from the wholesalers, whatever you buy it is auto-generated in the form of the 2P and 2A, and whatever you input in GSTR 1, that is a detailed input to whom you sold it, in which tax rate you sold it. So if you in details in the GSTR 1, then it is again auto-published in the 3P. So it is very easy now, somewhat. Earlier everything is manually, so when manually entered there was mismatches, this and that, so notices was there, but now that thing is now over. So as I told you, 99% is now auto-generated. So it is very user-friendly. Of course, no system is perfect in this world, more or less. Now it's good.
Now, if a business owner, regardless of the income level, fails to file GST returns or pay GST, what are the consequences or drawbacks they might face?
Coming to the consequences of the drawback is concerned, one should say that sometimes the penalty or the consequences is a little harsh in the GST regime, because before we dive into the these particular questions, what I want to make sure all the listeners that, see, GST is indirect taxes. That's everybody knows it. Indirect taxes means what? The tax is paid by the final consumers. So actually the shopkeepers or the business people, they are not the taxpayers. Of course, terminology we use it as taxpayer, but actual taxpayer is the final consumers. So you are registered dealers, you became agent of the government to collect the tax because it is paid by the consumers, you and me. So your job is simply to collect the tax in paid on time. Income tax is different, that is for another. But the question is that income tax, you see, you be it from your own pocket, from your own earning, from your own net income. But GST is you had already collected from the final consumers. So you are supposed to pay it. That's why I think so that my personal understanding is that the penalty or we can say the late fee and interest is little harsh. Okay. Suppose even for nil filers, suppose this particular month you haven't done anything. So you are supposed to file nil return. Because unless you file nil return on time, you don't know whether you done something or not. So even if you haven't done anything, you are supposed to file nil return on the specific time frame. Like for regular tax, you file it the nil return by 10, GST 1, 11, and 20 for the GST respectively. Once you haven't done it, then from the 21st of the particular month, every day you had to pay 20 rupees as a late fee for nil filers. Of course, the maximum is 500. But for turnover up from rupee 1 to 5 crore, who are declaring something, but you declare late, then your late fee will be 50 rupees per tea. That is 25 rupee for the CGST and 25 for the SGST. But the good thing here also, the maximum amount of the late fee is fixed at 0.04% of the turnover. It is not so that it will go on and go on and go on. So limitation is always there. And for turnover 5 to 20 crore, which is a bit medium enterprises, medium business people, your late fee is 100 rupee per tea. And finally for turnover 20 crore and above, which are comparatively large houses, and it is 200 rupees, 100 for CGST and 100 for SGST. And apart from this, the interest is 18% per annum. And that will be divided as per whatever it is. That is the generating system. So it is advised to everybody that actually, as far as everything is okay, we should always be on time. In fact, we should file it before the last date.
So is there any common misconception or myths about GST that you would like to clear up for our listeners?
Actually, one of the very common misconceptions is that, especially tribal people like we Nagas, suppose, we thought that we are paying taxes because of the GST only. See, people used to say that because we're up the GST, we're paying tax, otherwise was not paying tax, Earlier we were not paying tax, but now we are paying tax because GST. Not so actually, because earlier we are not aware that we are paying tax. Suppose earlier, during the VAT regimes, it is 14.5% and 5% respectively. So whenever you buy something, earlier also you was paying that 14.5 and 5%. Now you're also paying, but now the system is become transparent. People are not aware now, only now that they are paying taxes. Earlier you were not aware, that's all. So that is the misconception that earlier we were not paying taxes, but because of GST only we were paying taxes. No. The other thing is that things become costlier. It is psyche of all of us that now we are aware that we are paying taxes. That's why we thought that the things become costlier. But actually it's not so. In fact, the things become cheaper. Of course, there will be always inflation is always there. So inflation is in the sense that with this every year we know that because of the cost increases, the price of the cost increases, but it's still because of the tax. But otherwise, under normal circumstances, because the GST, in fact, the cost became cheaper. So these are two misconceptions. One is that Puela tax tiana, EDI tiazi because of GST. The other thing is that EDI pichi tiazi because GST, because we are paying tax. No, EDI kumdi tiazi na. But because of inflation, only there might be neutralization here and there. But under normals, iku hoane holido. In fact, we are given lesser price for the same goods.
Well, before we wrap up, could you tell us why public awareness about GST is so important?
From my personal point of view, I want to advise that every citizen is that, in fact, we should consider it as a privilege because it is a duty of every citizen to pay tax. See, the misconception that the government can bring money from anywhere. No. Because the government is run by taxpayers' money. How can the government will run? because the government cannot simply just print paper notes and use it. Of course, that is for another discussion, how deficit financing come, that is another matter. But the economy since the simple practical system in the world, no here in the world that the government can print money and use it as the one. Because any state, the government is run by taxpayer money. So we should think that the paying taxes is actually privilege in contributing to the nation built-in. And in fact, anyhow we are going to pay tax because, as I say, that everything that the government done is by the taxpayer money only. So that misconception that government doing paisa pay, why should we pay tax? Actually, we should remove this thinking from our psyche. And actually, because of GST now, we are aware that we are paying tax. That's good for all of us. Earlier we were not aware. That's good. So all these things that tax is not important from the point of government only for collection of revenue, but it's important from the point of view of every citizen of this state.
Well, Mr. Merenkaba, you have shared so many things about GST, the basics. But if our listeners, if they want to learn more about it or get help about GST-related queries, where should they go?
Yes, very good questions. See, now 아직까지도 so 많은 lahat internet as mobile as so from the internet in Google, every one of us will know that we'll get the knowledge here and there. But one more thing that I want to advise is that sometimes misleading lagabi pai, kiki bi pai na. So every article to chinin bi no hoy. So it is better that you should always try to get knowledge from the credible website. That is especially we had our real-time Nagaland tax website. From the Nagaland Taxes Departments. We had a real-time CPI size, Central for Indirect Taxes and Customs, where you can get all the information about the GST, what goes as exempted, what goes as taxable, not taxable, all those things you will get it. And apart from that, I should say that nothing is better than the personal puegina, hotigina, instant answer about it, and people satisfied with that. So in a taxes office, I'm talking about the state taxes office, where register the taxes officials, they're always willing to help you out. Any doubt, you always come down to our office, come to different taxes offices, and you should always inquire. Because I don't know whether it's a misconception or it's a reality, but you can get all the answers, whatever little you have.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Merenkaba, for sharing your valuable insights. Well, dear listeners, that brings us to the end of the first episode of Understanding GST. Today, we have explored the origin and structure of GST, a single unified tax that aims to simplify the way India does business. And as we move forward in this series, in our next episode, we will dwell deeper into the specific components of GST and the much talk about Gen Next reforms. Thank you for tuning in and see you in the next episode.